Folks, Alabama voters are going to the polls this morning as America watches to see who will become the next U.S. Senator from that deep red state. Last night, Democratic candidate Doug Jones, accompanied by former basketball player and Hall of Famer Charles Barkley, talked about the race and what it means for the state.
At some point, we got to stop looking like idiots to the nation.
As we all know, this election is going to be one of the most significant in our state's history in a long, long time. And we've got to make sure that at this crossroads in Alabama's history, we take the right road.
Certainly didn't mince any words there. Roy Moore's rally had a different tone. He fought back sexual misconduct allegations, while Steve Bannon had a message for wayward Republicans, and Moore's wife, Kayla, we don't know what the hell she was doing.
Fake news would tell you that we don't care for Jews. So I just want to set the record straight while they're here. One of our attorneys is a Jew.
What they want him for is that corporate tax cut. That's all they want him for. As soon as they get that tax cut, you watch what happens. There's a special place in hell for Republicans who should know better.
And we're not going to stand by and let other people from out of state and money from California control this election. They said these women, too, had not come forward for nearly 40 years. But they waited to 30 days before this general election to come forward.
Okay, so Roy Moore says we're not going to allow people from out of state come and discuss the election, and yet he was standing next to a guy who's from out of state. And in fact, he was standing next to a guy, okay, who attacked Joe Scarborough for not being smart enough to get into Georgetown and Harvard, yet Joe Scarborough went to the University of Alabama. Okay, just saying. Also, in one of the most bizarre interviews ever, a pro-Trump super PAC arranged for alleged child molester Roy Moore to sit down, do an interview with a 12-year-old girl. But you know what? She's a little too young for him. He prefers 14-year-olds.
Are you going to support President Trump and help him build the wall?
Yes, I think we need something, and I think it could be stopped sooner than that with the military. I think the military could be used down with the Border Patrol and actually stop immigration, or not immigration. It's not illegal immigration. It's illegal aliens coming across the border.
All right, joining us from Selma, Alabama is Rose Saunders, co-founder of Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee and coordinator for Vote or Die campaign. All right, then, Rose, so first and foremost, a lot of attention obviously is on black turnout on the Democratic side for Doug Jones. But this is my position. This is on white folks. This is on white voters. This is on whether or not they are going to accept an alleged child molester.
I agree, Roland. First, let me thank you for putting a dent in the miseducation of the public. You are a voice that is desperately needed at a time such as this, and I agree with you. They're trying to place all of the responsibility on the black vote, and I'm sure that if they are not successful, we will be blamed for the defeat. But if they are successful, we will not give any credit for the victory. And I believe that it is possible. I'm in the car right now ready to roll. We are out early in Alabama. We do intend to mobilize the black vote, but our people have felt so disconnected, not just to this campaign, but to the Democratic Party, even though it's the only party that we have to advance our interests. But we are very concerned that you have these child molesters, you have a governor and a president with these high positions, and yet a poor black man is in jail for 40 years for touching a white woman in the post office. These are the issues that black people understand that reflect some of the tyranny of the slavery era that Trump and Mr. Roy want to take us back to. But we are confident that we will have a victory either way. If Roy Moore loses, that is a clear victory. But even if he wins, it is another teaching moment and an opportunity to mobilize our people into a resistance movement similar to what we had with Nat Turner and Frederick Douglass. It's that time again.
And when you begin to look at, that particular state, when you hear folks talk about educated voters, in terms of affluent voters in Alabama, I mean, the reality is, with all of that, they still would accept an alleged pedophile over a Democrat. I mean, that speaks to values. That speaks to how hardcore folks there are there in Alabama when it comes to holding on to that power.
And it's not just power, it's white power. Let's make it clear, this is not about Democrats. They're holding on to this false notion of white supremacy. That's why we have all these monuments. That's why they tried to arrest me for just trying to advocate the removal of Nathan B. Forrest, the change in the name of Edmund Pettus, a bridge named after the Klan. This is about preserving white power. I have to give it to Mr. Moore. He was correct when he said, I am for making America great again. And great for us means black folk at the bottom, white folk at the top. This is clearly an election for the preservation of white power and white supremacy.
When you look at this campaign, and one of the things that jumps out, and I've heard from a lot of people there, in terms of how timid Doug Jones has been in terms of reaching out to African Americans, talking about prosecuting those who were responsible for the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. And this is the point that I keep making. At some point, white Democrats are going to have to get some courage. Yeah. That is, stop being afraid of white conservatives having the backlash against them, and realize that if you're going to lose, at least go down fighting. You don't suppress the voices by saying, well, I don't really want to, be overtly go after black voters because that might tick off these white voters and turn them out. They're not voting for you anyway. So it makes sense to me to target those moderate white voters in Alabama, turn out in massive numbers your black voters, and we see this all across the South where the same thing happened with Michelle Nunn in Georgia. She was scared to death to court black voters, and she still lost. And if you study the numbers, she actually could have won had she turned out more black voters.
Because people don't understand that you got to mobilize black voters by creating an atmosphere of excitement like the 60s. When Dr. King came to Selma, he found a movement of people that were anxious to fight for civil rights. Unfortunately, Doug Jones did not even advertise on our 50,000 watt station, but we advertised for him because this is not about him, it's about us. But you're right, that solid block of white voters will never vote for Doug Jones, but he had the opportunity, and he still has the opportunity. He was here in Selma at Brown Chapel Church. He was on the ground, but I really believe that being on the ground a few months earlier would have made a greater difference. But let's hope and pray and work hard today that we can still pull off this victory.
All right, Rose Saunders, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
We appreciate you, Roland. Hang in there.
I will do. Thanks a lot. Let's go to our panel. Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, leadership strategist and author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead. Joel Payne, Democratic strategist with the Corvus MSL Group. Karen Maria Alston, founder and CEO of the Spectrum Circle. Avis, I'll start with you. What we're seeing here is, again, you have Republican voters who say, I'll take an alleged child molester over a Democrat. And at the end of the day, like I said, white Democrats in the South are going to have to get some courage and have honest conversations with their white constituents.
Absolutely. It seems like to me they are committed to a forever losing strategy of trying to appease to voters who, as you pointed out, they're not going to woo. And here's the reality. They have, in the long term, demographics on their side. So not only in states like Alabama, where, quite frankly, they have a disadvantage built into the system just in terms of the fact that that state is usually solidly red, but just overall, we have a demographic shift in this nation that they could take advantage of if they were to more boldly go out to, be loyal to, and show black voters and other voters of color that they really want them in their party, woo them, and then turn them out to vote in massive numbers on Election Day. They could have a solid path to victory if they fully committed to that path, rather than wavering back and forth trying to woo these white voters that quite frankly haven't voted for them for 50 years or more.
Joe.
This is very simple in terms of this election. It's about hoping that Roy Moore is so disgusting and is so offensive to the normal Republican voters that they stay home, and it's engaging African Americans to turn out, because this is a special election. This is an off-year election, so it's all about turnout. You're not going to get presidential level turnouts. You're not even going to get midterm level turnouts. It's about turning out the vote. And I will say this. Yes, I don't want African Americans to be blamed if Doug Jones loses, but African Americans have to show up. And as a progressive movement, we have to figure out how to engage African American voters in the post-Obama era.
Okay, first of all,
and I don't believe we've done that.
No, but here's the deal, though. It's not hard to engage African American voters in the post-Obama era. It's the same way you engage black folks before Obama. What it requires is, and look, and this is one of the results. And again, black folks get real sensitive if you criticize Obama. But the reality is this here: for 8 years, the Democratic Party took the lead of Obama, where they said we didn't need to engage him because we got him. I mean, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. The black infrastructure was decimated in the 8 years under Obama because he said, and his operative said, we don't need it. We got him. I kept saying, yeah, but he ain't going to be here after 8 years. So you had better understand that. So what that means is you have to literally put resources, Karen, on the ground, not 6 weeks out, but you got to do it 6 months out. Yes. We're going into a midterm election next year. You're going to have primaries taking place in March. That means that you better be putting dollars on the ground now. And in January, you better understand that, guess what? Yard signs still matter. You better understand that you've got to go not just, oh, we can just drop ads in, but you got to have block captains, precinct captains. You're going to have folks on the street. You're going to have people literally going into these places, getting people to register, then getting to the vote in the primary, then getting to the vote in the November election. It can't be this old model of dropping by a few black churches a few weeks before the election. That's gone.
First of all, I hope the Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party, is listening to what you just said, because that's gospel truth.
Well, they got until December 21st, which is our last day. They might want to listen now.
This is and I'm actually very optimistic about today, because this is a tipping point for Alabama, and this is a teachable moment for the Democratic Party. So what you said, Roland, is 100% accurate. They should have put the resources in 6 months ago. But what I'm hoping comes out of today, no matter who wins, is that the Democratic Party now understands we have to engage our voters in a state that, in all honesty, they didn't think about, because it is so red. There is so much tribalism. But here's a tremendous opportunity to engage people to run, to get the party excited, to get white Democrats and African American Democrats excited about the opportunities in Alabama. So I'm excited about the future of what can happen. And the amount of money that's poured into this race, I think is going to be good for Alabama.
All right. Also, folks, yesterday you have President Barack Obama and former VP Joe Biden recording robocalls for Doug Jones. You also have Trump recording robocalls for Roy Moore. And so, again, all eyes are going to be on Alabama. In the next hour, we'll talk with the folks with wokevote.us and what they're doing to engage millennials in 7 critical cities in Alabama.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh, my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.